Well, it's welcome back to the Welcome Wagon, the podcast about drinks that starts with a single word. And I'm Joe Fattorini, and my co-host, Maya
Samuelsson,
Maya Samuelsson.
Yeah.
What is our single word this week?
It's ice.
Ice. Iceman. The Iceman cometh. It's ice. The ice in the world of drinks. Actually, there's quite a long, sort of interesting history of ice in the world of drinks. And you're going to give us a bit of an education, aren't you, on how to ice various drinks?
Yes, and temperature.
Temperature.
Yeah, a
little
bit about the temperature as well of the wines, I think.
Which I know, because I tend to be the one the sort of history nerd in all of this. Drinks weren't always that cold, although they've been colder for longer than we think, which I was utterly fascinated by. Can I just recommend it? It's a book written by a friend of mine, which I really enjoyed, which has sort of got me thinking about this. It's by a guy called Fred Hogg. Hello, Fred, if you're listening in Thailand.
Hello, Fred.
Fred and his amazing wife, Kay Plunkett Hogg. Kay Plunkett Hogg is genuinely among the greatest Thai cooks I've ever met, and she's got a brilliant book called Ban. But Fred is a great he was a wine merchant. He's also a great writer. He's very interested in things, and he wrote a book called Of Ice and Men, which is a very good pun, which is a fascinating history. I didn't realise that people have been icing drinks for a very long time, right the way back to the ancient Greeks who used to ice wine. And there's a brilliant story about a comedian, and he writes about this woman, and she tempts her lovers because she has iced wine. But also something, I know, you're now thinking, if only I'd known, I could tempt men with iced wine.
With iced wine.
But some people have really held out, like the British famously tend not to ice their drinks very much. Are you aware of this?
It feels more like an American thing. If you put ice in, or maybe a little bit too cool. I mean, in Sweden, it's a very cold country, and England is quite cold as well. So I think maybe we are not as happy about the cold drinks. So maybe it's about the weather as well outside. I think if you are living in a really hot country, maybe it's more easy to chill your drinks a little bit too much just for them to be refreshing. It's just a couple of weeks in Sweden. You need drinks to be that refreshing, actually.
I'd always love a wine fact. Icing your wine is older than ice cream. Mm-hmm. Which I suppose, actually, when you think about it, you go, well, maybe it would. But they're both quite closely related. There was a guy called Buontalenti, who was an architect and mathematician and things in Tuscany. And he is sometimes, I think, erroneously credited with being the man who invented ice cream. I don't think he actually was. But he did introduce these big ice houses into kind of Medici-era Florence that people would then go and use to go and chill down their wine, and so people would enjoy iced wines for the first time. I mean, before that, but apparently against the advice of doctors who considered it incredibly injurious to your health to go and drink iced wine. It was very bad for you.
So it's not the wine that is bad for you, it's actually the ice that is bad for you.
That was entirely the view, was that it was quite bad for you to go and drink it. Fred tells a brilliant story in his book, and it's from a film, I can't remember the name of the film, and about a sort of English blustery colonel, and somebody brings him a drink and he says, I asked for a gin and tonic, and this is a gin, tonic and ice. Ice is American and I'm not an American.
So he didn't want any ice in his cocktails as well, or his drinks.
Yeah. And obviously you have an amazing career, having been a mixologist, cocktail bartender. You've done all that sort of work. You've way more than me in this department. All cocktails have ice in them, I think.
No, but all cocktails normally you chill it with ice in some way. So if you talk about a cocktail, normally you don't have ice in the cocktail, but you have ice either when you are shaking the cocktail or when you are stirring the cocktail. So you are chilling the cocktail with the ice.
Because I know,
like a dry martini, for an example.
Jerry Thomas, and again, Fred, thank you very much for this. Jerry Thomas writes the first proper kind of cocktail guide in the late 1800s, like 1862, I think, first cocktail guide comes out. And his only advice on ice is that you should wash it before you use it, because I think at the time, ice could sometimes be mucky.
Okay.
I think it's because of the way...
you are not supposed to wash it because it's going to be as dry as possible.
You've got to get, you've got to keep it really, really dry. So I think at the time it was because often ice was held in these underground kind of bunkers, and so you'd have to wash it off. What Fred points out is that other than that, it's entirely unremarkable that there's ice in all these drinks. What he points out is that in 1810, 1820, ice is this extraordinary luxury that almost nobody gets to see kind of ever. It's only something that's enjoyed by the wealthiest people. So in 50, 60 years, ice goes from this incredibly, marginal luxury that's almost never seen to totally unremarkable. All you should do is just make sure you wash it. And that's the period. So kind of before 1800, ice is something for the richest people in the world. By 1900, ice, whatever. It's just kicking around. It's like us. We've got it in a big bucket here, which we do. Now, we've got a very large bucket. It's partly to hide the fact they've got some ice in a bag to go and keep it all sort of contented. But I want you to tell me, you've worked with ice, obviously, all your career. I didn't know that thing. So, number one, if you're doing cocktails, don't wash your ice?
So no, you are not supposed to. The ice is supposed to be as dry as possible. When you can actually see it's dry on the surface, that's fresh ice. And as soon as it gets watery, when it starts melting, it's going to melt much faster. And the main thing when you work with ice is to try to not get it to melt. So a normal thing when you work as a bartender is that people come and for the cocktails who has crushed ice, they come and they want less ice for like a caipirinha or that kind of a mojito. Yeah. They come and they're like, I'm not very fond of that much ice. Could you have less ice? The cocktail with crushed ice without ice is like this small. It's like super, super small. It's just a couple of centiliters.
Yeah.
So you have the spirits, which could be like 4 or 6 centiliters, or depending on how much you have, and then you have some maybe sugar and some lime. So normally it's just it's such a short drink without ice. So the ice in these kind of cocktails, when it's crushed, are supposed to melt a little bit to give the cocktail a little bit diluted, because that's where this perfect mix is, and to keep it cold, because that's also a misunderstanding that if I order a gin and tonic with just one ice cube, then it's going to be less watery.
Yeah.
But that ice cube is going to melt much, much faster. So it's going to be more watery if you have less ice, or if you fill the glass with ice, the ice cubes. Yeah,
yes. Cubes.
Ice cubes are going to make each other cold and not melt.
Oh.
So if you're using ice in a cocktail, use as much as the glass can fit.
That's very interesting, because as an experiment I did with my dad. My dad did it, and we were discussing it. He did it, and I sort of consulted on the experiment, because we were interested in this idea that you get a completely spherical ice cube, which has less surface area than a cubic ice cube, and he had 2 glasses. Everything was the same temperature, and one of them he put a single spherical ice cube that weighed the same as, I think it was spherical ice ball, and in the other glass he had 2 ice cubes that weighed the same, and then he poured in some liquid with both of them. The thinking being that if it was true that having smaller surface area, it would mean that the ice ball would melt more slowly than the cubes. I don't know whether it was just because it wasn't an extreme enough effect, but actually they kind of melted at pretty much exactly the same rate between the two of them. And I don't know whether that's just because it can't really be a myth, but whether maybe the ice cubes are chilling each other rather than the ice ball that's only chilling itself. And also that the effect only becomes really extreme when you have crushed ice, that then you've got a massively large surface area that melts it down again. Have you ever used ice balls?
Yeah, I use those as well. And today they do, a lot of the bars use like 1 cube or 1 bowl or one like a stem almost.
Yeah.
And so they shape it to the glass that they are going to serve the cocktail in. So, and I think normally those ice lasts much, much longer than if you have smaller ice cubes. So I mean, ice it's a kind of amazing thing when it comes to cocktail. That's one of the most important things. That the ice is a good quality. If you have less quality in the ice and it's going to melt faster, you can destroy actually all the cocktails on the list because it's going to be diluted, and you don't want that. So ice is very important when it comes to cocktail. And if you don't have it in the cocktail afterwards, you have it when you shake it. And you have it or if you stir it like a dry martini or cosmopolitan or margarita or these kind of cocktails. It's not served with ice. But then it's also very important that you have as much ice as possible in the shaker and that the ice is fresh, because otherwise it's going to melt and the drink is going to be diluted.
Can I make an icy drink whilst you're sort of chatting? Because I've got some ice cubes here, and I'm going to. I don't know whether this is.
Am I going to have a cocktail?
Well, it wasn't so much a cocktail. This was. No, I don't know if this is the correct method, but this is how I've always done it. When I've wanted to make crushed ice, I mean, you can use like a rolling pin to kind of bash it. But the other thing I've sometimes done, I sort of get it in a cloth like this, and then just sort of wallop it on the floor.
Yeah.
And then, or I could wallop it on the table, but it might be quite noisy.
Yeah. Careful with the glasses.
But you sort of smash it up.
It's party.
But it's kind of a way to go and have one. Let me just lean down here. I'm going to not get very smashed. Because what I want to be able to make is it'll be a terrible one, but a piscine. Have you ever come across the idea of a piscine?
No, what is a piscine?
So this is an interesting drink. There's some dispute as to who invents this, but the idea was that it's a swimming pool of rosé.
Piscine means swimming pool,
Piscine,
right?
as in swimming pool. Now, I've heard it variously attributed that it was Brigitte Bardot who invented it.
Wow.
Or possibly Princess Margaret, or possibly James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
All three of them famously drank this. James Bond, so it's a combination. I'm going to go and put this ice in here. So you have crushed ice. I'm putting this actually into a very... I'm going to do it differently. I'm actually putting it into a very large glass. It's an entirely inappropriate glass in a way, because this is a Riedel Syrah glass. But the idea is you want the biggest glass possible.
Yeah.
That you put. I've not got nearly enough ice here.
So it is like a swimming pool.
So it's like a swimming pool, and I put lots and lots of ice in, and then you add in Provençal Rosé, and it's like a swimming pool of Provençal Rosé. Can I just say to our partners here, Riedel, thank you very much for your extraordinarily smart glasses. Can I apologise on Maya's behalf that I'm now using it to go make a swimming pool of rosé? So I've got this is Minuti here, and there we go. I've got a piscine of rosé. And James Bond drinks it from, I think, is it in... I'm trying to remember which film it's in. It might even be one of the really early ones. He drinks it out of an English beer pint glass. He has a pint of rosé like that. Have you ever come across this?
I had, when you are on vacation in some like beach clubs and stuff, they serve that, but I didn't know it was called piscine.
Called a piscine. And Princess Margaret was, it has to be said, an epic drinker, and she enjoyed it very much. I think in some volume, but apparently Brigitte Bardot thought this was the most refreshing way to go and enjoy Provençal rosé. Weirdly, there is a Provençal producer called Chateau Léoube, and they made a specific cuvée for making piscine, because obviously it does get diluted quite quickly. So I think they made one that was, the idea is it could be diluted.
So a little bit more concentrated.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you are, because I think that could be a problem when you go, because I learned drinking beer at quite an age. So before that, I liked wine more. I still like wine more, maybe, in beer, but then when we go on vacation and in summertime, in the summer, and it's very hot outside, and you take a glass of wine, that's kind of a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
So this is actually a way, I think, also not just to get it refreshing, to actually get it a little bit lighter in alcohol. Sometimes.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm currently in Juan Le Pan, and it's July, and I'm wearing some very tight Speedos, and I'm all oiled up. Flavio Briatore, he's here. Naomi Campbell, we're all drinking this. There's Princess Margaret, she's got a cigarette going. Oh, what a way to go and spend an afternoon. I like that. What are your views on putting ice into regular wine?
I think it's up to the consumer how they want to drink the wine always. I think some wines maybe are not I mean, it depends on the quality and the price. If you have a super high quality, high priced wine, I think maybe it's a shame to put ice in it, because you are going to make it a little bit too cold normally to appreciate all this. Like when you talk about the wine, when it's complexity, you have small aromas, a lot of them. And when you're chilling a wine too much, especially if you put it on ice, you're going to lose some of those aromas because you can't feel them as much. So I think even if the wine tastes good, the winemaker has made a lot of effort to put all these to make all these aromas. So maybe it's not the wine that deserves that. But otherwise, if you have it could still be a good wine, but it looks maybe a little bit easier quality or simpler quality. If you like to drink it with ice, go ahead.
Now, can you pass me this bottle that's in front of you?
This one?
I have chosen this on the basis that I think this is not an inappropriate wine to have ice with.
Yeah.
So this is a bottle of Kung Fu Girl Riesling from Washington State. I actually know quite a weird story about this, that when Charles Smith, who first came up with the name, was trying to work this out, I think he was enjoying what we might diplomatically refer to as a herbal cigarette with somebody who'd worked on the film Kill Bill. And the next morning they woke up and he didn't know a name for this. And he remembered there was the character, the Kung Fu lady. And so they said, let's call it Kung Fu Girl Riesling. And that was where he came up with the name. He told me once that.
But that has a little bit of sweetness as well.
It does, which is slightly why I thought it's not the wrong wine. Now, I'm pouring this into a sort of Riesling type glass. And I've got a couple of ice cubes in there. So this is an acceptable way. I mean, this is the sort of wine you can chill. I mean,
yes,
it's off dry.
Yeah. And if you look to temperature, normally wines that has a little bit of sweetness should be served cooler as well.
So it's all right.
It's all right. I think it's also, I think everything is all right as long as you enjoy it.
I like that, actually. Yeah. It's
nice.
Quite nice. I know a weird sort of wine and ice fact. This is slightly sort of technical, but for anybody who's really into wine and enjoying wine exams, I was in Australia once, and somebody said, why was it that these Australian Cabernets and Shirazes and things, had much lower alcohol back in the day? Mm-hmm. They said, was it climate change? And there was an old winemaker who went, well, yeah, but not entirely. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, what we used to do is when the grapes came in, winemaking, you want to regulate the temperature of the ferment and so on. And he said, now you put in, you have these kind of sleeves that have cold water in that cool the whole thing down. We said there was a time when what they used to do, if a ferment got a bit hot, you'd just put a massive block of ice into the fermenting wine. Yeah. And it would cool the whole thing down. But of course, it would also take the alcohol level in the wine from 14% to about 12.5%. And so he said a lot of these wines that have got lower alcohol, certainly, 0.5% or 1% of that was just somebody putting a massive block of ice into it, like the 50s and the 60s. And I think we were drinking a 1947, it was a Riesling like this. Yeah. It was a 1947 Riesling that was 11.5%. And we said, oh, crikey.
It was dry.
It was dried Riesling. And he went, to be honest, they probably had a massive block of ice in it when it was fermenting. And it made for these amazing wines that came out the other end. But we don't do that anymore.
Cool fermenting.
Exactly. Now, you've brought out lots of different wines.
Yeah, I was thinking to talk a little bit about temperature. Even if it's not ice, it is about how cold it is. So as you tried out, some wines is good to have with ice, and wines change depending on which temperature you actually serve it in. So we have these recommendations of what temperature you should be serving what kind of wine in. And so when it comes to white wine, and as we talked about as well, when we serve wine too cool, it will lose some aromas, especially like fruitness and floweriness and things like that in the aroma will you will feel it less, which is sad sometimes because the winemaker have worked really hard to get these aromas in the wine.
Can I tell you, just at the point where I'm at now with this Riesling, I am at the lime and white flowers stage. And it has changed just from having those ice cubes. It's quite a good sound as well. But I suspect I'm going to lose those in a minute.
Yes.
So I'm already
get
changing.
Cooler all the time.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the palate, the wine can change as well. If you serve it a little bit too cool, the acidity, it will feel more refreshing if it's cold. So the acidity will feels enhanced. But the tannins in a red wine can also be really astringent. So we should be careful to serve red wines too cold. But that's not normally the problem. The problem is normally when we serve red wines too warm.
Now, this point is a suitable point to mention. These are my very good friends, and I'm sure you may know them. Susie Barry and Peter Richards. They are a husband and wife, and they are both masters of wine. They're lovely.
Oh, they have the podcast I love.
And they have another very, very good drinks podcast. Enjoy listening to this one, but you may also go and enjoy Drinks Blast, which is their brilliant podcast. And they came up with this great thing they call the 20-20 rule. And Peter was explaining it to me. He said, well, all white wines are best drunk taken out of the fridge 20 minutes before you drink them. All red wines are best drunk putting them into the fridge 20 minutes before you drink them. And it is absolutely true. We tend to serve white wines too cold and red wines too warm.
Yes.
So the 20-20 rule is sort of go the other way. Put a bottle of wine, even quite smart Bordeaux's and things, put it in the fridge 20 minutes before you go and drink it, and it'll be just a little bit cooler. But most white wines, and particularly I can see here you've got really quite smart wines, like the Chateau Montelena Chardonnay here. That's not, you don't want to have that coming out at 8 degrees from a fridge.
No, exactly. So we talked about what happens when you put a wine too cold, but when wine is served too warm, which we normally do with red wines, then it could be a little bit too, the acidity is not getting as fresh as we want. So the wine is getting a little flat, and it could also get a little bit too fruity on the nose or too pronounced. So it's almost jammy in a style. So we get it much, much fresher when we have it a little bit cooler. So when it comes to white wine, we have the wines that you served, but Riesling, but if we have it dry, you should serve it around 8 to 10 degrees normally.
And I'm in that ballpark kind of now.
Yeah, which is perfect.
It's really perfect. And also I'm getting out of it the sweetness of it, but the sweetness is nicely balanced. Actually, when it was warm, it was a bit icky. But at this temperature, it's off dry. It will be really lovely with something like a poke bowl. Yeah. That'd be perfect with a poke bowl.
That's nice.
Sorry, poke. But, when it was warmer, it was just kind of a bit too cloying. It's a nice balance. Montelena, where would that be?
Now we go to a white wine which has oak.
Yeah.
So this is Chardonnay, California, very oaked. And normally Chardonnays from California are oaked. But wines in this kind of style, we tend to go up in temperature a little bit more because the oak can also appear as astringent on the palate if we get it a little bit too cold. So, and we need to get the aromas. We want to have all the aromas in this wine. So these wines we like to serve at like 10 to 12 degrees.
Which is sort of out of a fridge, leave it for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I think both of them are working. If you do that theory, which is perfect when you are at home, if you don't have a wine fridge, that is a great theory. And when you take it out, then it can evolve in your glass instead.
Because you do have a wine fridge, don't you?
Yeah, I do have wine.
What
fridges.
temperature do you keep your wine fridge at?
I have different stages.
Oh my goodness, it's really quite smart, this.
Yeah, it's very nice.
I need to get a wine fridge. I don't have a wine fridge. I just have the balcony, which means that everything's too cold in the winter and too warm in the summer.
Yeah.
So what temperatures do you keep your wines in the wine fridge?
I do have different, we do have 2 wine fridges.
I know I feel sort of massively outgunned here. 2 wine fridges, one for red, one for white?
And an apartment at like 65 square meters. So it's a priority.
So about 50% of your apartment
It's
is wine fridges and associated wine elements.
But so normally I put it a little bit cooler than I would like to serve it because I like to see the change in the glass as well. And it's much, much easier to make a wine warm than to make it cold.
This is true.
Faster. So that's a good thing. So I have different temperatures. So it's a little bit cooler than this normally. And then I just take the Chardonnays, which is oaked, or the oaked wines, out a little bit earlier. And then they change in the glass. But when it comes to red wine, we are serving it at a higher temperature, but it's still not room temperature. So we have two different type of wines here as well that we serve in different styles. Just as the whites, we have the whites without oak with high acidity, and we have the whites with oak. And now we have two different styles of red wines. We have the more powerful tannins, more intensity, Bordeaux-like wines, for an example.
So Chateau Haut-Brion, 1982. I mean, the sort of thing that we would drink on a regular basis, really.
Yes.
And apart from the fact that that's thousands of dollars.
Beautiful. This is both in white and red, though. And we have this Pinot Noir, or this is a Beaujolais Gamay style, juicy style of wine.
That's very much a red wine you can chill, isn't it?
Yes. So these is cooler in temperature, and this is warmer in temperature. So these kind of wines, which is also like this is a more easygoing wine, Beaujolais, juicy style. But we do have also Pinot Noir, really high quality wine. So I mean, both these kind of wines we should serve a little bit cooler. And now we are at 14 to 16 degrees.
There's it's quite a famous James Bond bit where he talks about the perfect temperature for Volnay. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was in Fahrenheit as well, which I think probably kind of throws it. But it was something like Volnay should be served at 62.4 degrees Fahrenheit. And he's unbelievably precise about exactly the temperature. And Volnay, interestingly, is better off ever so slightly cooler than other Burgundy crus. Chambertin can be a little bit warmer. I mean, some people become amazingly precise about temperatures that different wines should go out at. I mean, I don't think should be that. There is this lovely trend, and I quite like it. Things like Mencia and Gamay and Frappato from Sicily. These great varieties, they're very low in tannin and are really nice if you put them in the fridge, maybe for longer than 20 minutes, actually. Yeah. I mean, 40 minutes.
You can try it. So temperature is also what you like as a person. It's personal. So try it out. And when it comes to a little bit more fuller-bodied wine like Bordeaux or other tannic wines, then you should have like 16 to 18 degrees. So that's like the four reds, two different for reds, two different spans for whites. But try it out at home. But normally, red is too warm. Normally, white is too cold.
I've often explained this, and you can tell me if I've been barking up the wrong tree, which wouldn't be the first time. When people sort of say, well, I thought it was meant to be at room temperature, and then you explain, well, what we think of as room temperature now has central heating. For most people, room temperature was an awful lot colder. It was essentially what your cellar is for a long time. You know, actually, historically, people's houses were just colder.
It depending on which country you live in as well.
Yeah.
So, and depending on if it's summer or if it's, what is room temperature? It's a hard...
Which is what explains why British people drink warm beer. Because it's cold anyway. So you don't want your beer to be even colder. I mean, Yorkshire bitter is much nicer when it's warmer, to be honest. I know lager should be pretty cold, but really, Yorkshire bitter. There's a publican in London, a guy called Oisin Rogers, and he was a very Irish fellow, and so you'd imagine he serves amazing Guinness. But he's reckoned to have the best pint of Guinness in all of the UK. And he reckons it's the temperature that's the critical thing. And he has different lines. So he said the problem is that most people, when they serve Guinness, they put it through the same kind of machinery and the same diameter of line, of sort of tube, as all the other beers. And he said, no, it needs a different line, so it comes out as a slightly different temperature. So go to the Devonshire in Soho. So go to the Devonshire in Soho and you'll get the best pint of Guinness from Oisin Rogers. Interestingly, he doesn't think it's his favourite beer. And he reckons his best beer that he serves is Taylor's Landlord, which is from where I'm from, actually, in the Yorkshire Dales. And it's also, weirdly, Madonna's favourite beer, utterly bizarrely. And he reckons that that's the best one he has. But for him, it's these small differences in temperature that the drink is served at. That's what makes the difference, rather than all the cask.
And when it comes to beer, it's a shame when it comes to champagne and sparkling wines. The temperature also affects the bubbles. So the carbon dioxide binds harder to the liquid when it's cold than when it's warm. So if you have a glass of sparkling wine or if you have a beer which is warmer, the bubbles is going to get away faster. So when you come to traditional temperature to serve champagne, normally you serve 6 to 8 degrees, which is cooler than still white wines. But then you will also lose a lot of the aromas. And champagnes normally have a lot of complexity, and you don't want to hide those beautiful aromas. So I would not say you should serve a champagne at 6 to 8 degrees today. I think you should serve it to 8 to 10-ish, a little bit warmer. And don't, if we lose the bubbles because we serve it a little bit warmer, then we drink too slow.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have so much bubbles in the champagne. So we don't need to be that careful anymore. But that is actually, so if you are drinking a little bit too slow, and the wine, or if you forget like a glass of champagne standing outside and it's hot, or if it's sunny, then it's going to be losing their bubbles a little bit faster.
Here we have this enormous ice. It's a bath. I could practically swim in that. Or it's a sort of big ice bowl, which is for serving champagne.
Yeah.
And I know one of the bits, we'll talk about this in a sec, but if you go to, there's a private members club. This is going to sound so full of myself. There's a private members club. I used to be in London, in Pall Mall. It's next door to St James's Palace. It's called 67 Pall Mall.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
It's a very beautiful club. And in there, the champagne does not go into a big ice bowl. They've got this extraordinary thing. So it's about the size of a small chest freezer, I guess. And it's made of metal. And the whole thing has a kind of banked... When you look at it, it's like... It's made up of very small pieces, about the size of a coffee bean, of metal. These little coffee bean-sized metal bits. And the way it works is that there's an electric charge goes through them, and you can set that at exactly the temperature you want. Mm-hmm. So
that's great.
When you go and have like an ice bath, essentially it's like 4 degrees or something. Mm. But here, you can change it. So theoretically, you can have a below 0 degree champagne bath, if you like. Or you could set it to precisely 4 degrees or precisely 8 degrees. So there, I think they change it depending on exactly which champagnes they've got in. Mm. So they lay the champagne in these beads of metal along the top of the thing. And it's amazing. It's like beyond ice. I mean, there's obviously an ice thing. This is... Now we've got computer-controlled ice for exactly what the temperature is. And I sort of said, have you tried it? Oh, yeah, well, we've tried it at like -5. What's the champagne like when we serve it at -5? What's the champagne like when we go and serve it at exactly 6? And so on, the whole thing goes across. This is my Joe goes to a private members club in London story.
And it starts to be one of the goals in our next apartment when it's bigger. I think we need one.
Have exactly one of those. Because actually, if you've got an ice bucket, it's not just for ice, is it? You should put water in the ice bucket.
Yes, which is important because otherwise we don't get the connection with the wine in the same way.
Yeah.
When you have the water get connected to the bottle much faster, so it's going to chill much faster than if you just have the cubes.
Do you remember when we went ice swimming, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
For anybody who's not watched, if I'm looking at you now, if you've not watched Drinking with Joe and Maya, go and watch it immediately.
It is a good episode.
And it's a very good episode. You took me ice swimming and sort of near the Arctic Circle. I mean, it's all the places like, we're just outside the Arctic Circle. Let's go ice swimming.
It was near that experience. It was very, very cold.
I remember I had to be taken to the sauna to sort of warm up because I started...
And then we drank beer.
And then we drank beer in the sauna. But ice swimming is only ever about 4 degrees, isn't it? Because it has to be liquid, so it can't be actually icy. It was colder, weirdly, when you got out.
Yeah, it was super cold.
It's like the windiest day they'd had in Umeå.
But when it comes to ice and champagne as well, my dad normally chilled the champagne to do it quickly, to put it in a freezer. And then you need to be careful because when the wine expands... When it freezes, if you forget it and it freezes and expands, then the bottle is going to break. and the wine, you will not have any more champagne, which is very sad. This happened a lot of time in our homes. It's like probably the biggest fight between my mom and dad is when my dad freezes the champagne and it explodes, and my mom goes very sad because she can't have the champagne that was supposed to be cold.
Not only that, but then you have to defrost all the frozen champagne that's spattered.
But I mean, this happens. Don't do it. It's better to have some. Or you need to set an alarm. If you put it in the freezer, set an alarm.
I have done this. Products you can put in the freezer, because it's not just one. You should always keep Aquavit in the freezer.
Yes, because then the alcohol is high enough so it won't freeze.
And I keep vodka in the freezer.
That's perfect.
And particularly, I'm adding some ice to a drink here. Especially, I like to put in, when you get really good, proper Polish or Russian vodka, and it changes not just the character, but it changes the texture. It becomes kind of oily. When you drink it, it's a very different kind of mouthfeel. All right, so I tend to always have a bottle of Aquavit. And in fact, one of the ones I've got an Aquavit from Stockholm's Brennery.
Nice.
Who we visit. Once again, Drinking with Joe and Maya on the television. We go and it's in season 2. We go and visit them, and I keep one of their Aquavits in the freezer because it's really nice as it sort of snaps when you're drinking stuff. I am here. I'm committing a cardinal sin for some people. I've got a bottle of the famous grouse, or a half bottle of the famous grouse, because I know you're not drinking, so I'll just have to drink a half bottle all on my own. But a full bottle on my own would be excessive.
Yes. So when this baby is out, it's a full bottle.
It's a full bottle of the famous grouse. Famous grouse, famously, there's a distillery, it's in Perth, and their sort of home distillery had a cat called Towser there, and it held the world record for the most number of mice that it had caught. So the world's most successful mouser came from the home distillery of famous grouse. And I'm going to have a famous grouse over ice.
And this is...
Scandal drinking whiskey on ice.
This is a big discussion, right? Are you supposed to drink it neat? Are you supposed to drink it with ice? Are you supposed to drink it with water?
I've got an amazing thing. So if anybody is listening to this, watching this, hello. If you
welcome.
Welcome. If you want the ultimate in Scotch whisky nerdery, there is an amazing company. It's called Larkfire. And in fact, I think they sell in Stockholm, and I know they sell around the world, in America and the US, America and the UK. They have cans of water from the Isle of Harris. And the idea is that if you're going to go and drink Scotch whisky, you should mix it with Scottish water. So there's this bog. It's like a loch, but it's slightly boggy. So the water has this pinkish tinge to it because of all the peat that goes into it. And you buy a can, and the idea is you add Scottish water to your Scottish whisky. And the best thing to go and do is to make these slightly pinkish brown ice cubes. So you have Scottish ice in your Scotch. So Larkfire canned Scottish water with your Scotch, it's the ultimate thing to go and have. It's the ultimate in Scotch nerdery. I do drink, can I just tell you, I don't care. I drink my Scotch with ice. It's very nice.
I think it's a personal preference. Everyone should be able to drink it as they want.
I'm doing this entirely to go and get furious letters. I'm just trolling people now. If you think this is a dreadful idea, write to us. Get in touch at our Instagram page at Drinking with Joe and Maya.
Write to Joe. Write to Joe.
Write to Joe and say, Joe, this is a terrible idea. Say, Maya's amazing. She gives such good advice. And you sit there drinking Scotch with ice. So people should follow us. They watch Drinking with Joe and Maya. Visit our Instagram page at Drinking with Joe and Maya. If you are listening to this, you can also watch it. So you can see me thumping away with the ice on YouTube. Anyway, that's us. And also email us, so you can always get in touch. Send us a text message through the Instagram. That's the best way, and we'll go and respond to you. I will there say, no, I'm not going to apologise. I really enjoy. What is your favourite cocktail to make?
To make or to drink?
Both.
Love to drink Negroni.
Which is good with a single big square.
Yeah.
My dad makes one actually with a spherical ice cube. And not only that, he makes it with an ice cube with a flower in it.
But it's just an amazing drink. I think I love it. But if it comes to make a cocktail, I think dry martini, because you have so many preferences when it comes to dry martini. If it's going to be dry, if it's going to be an olive, if it's going to be a lemon zest, it's going to be a Gibson with this. Sweet onions, what do you call it?
It's pickled onion.
Pickled onions. So when it comes to dry martini, everyone who comes into a bar have their preferences, what they want, and they know which gin they want, and etc. So I just love making a dry martini and to see what you want specifically.
A 4-part
Spicy margarita is amazing as well.
4 parts martini, a single sunbeam that has passed through a bottle of vermouth on the shelf into the cocktail cabinet, and an Andalusian olive. That was the recipe from a magazine called The Chap. And I just loved the idea that the only additional agreement was a single sunbeam that has passed through a bottle of vermouth that came in. Do you know what connects the Yorkshire city of Bradford with James Bond?
No.
And it's a martini-related fact. A dry martini shaken, not stirred, is known technically as a Bradford. And Bradford is like, I was born there and I'm very fond of it. It is not one of the most glamorous places in the world, it has to be said. But yeah, a Bradford apparently is a shaken, not because you're meant to stir a martini, you're not meant to shake it.
We should do an episode about the word dry.
We should do an episode about the word dry. We will come back for that.
Yeah, we'll come back for that. More dry martinis on the way.
Ice to bed. We've gone through everything. I've been quietly drinking. I bought no non-alcoholic options for you. So you got 3 empty glasses.
Sitting with the empty glasses. But the next time I will bring something.
We'll go and bring
something. But they are
something.
beautiful though.
They are very beautiful. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. This is the tumbler, isn't it? The Riedel tumbler.
It's beautiful.
Look, thank you very much to our partners Riedel. You've provided me with glasses, which I have horribly misused in this case by making a piscine and putting ice into a Riesling glass and going and making this. Come back and join us again next time on The Welcome Wagon in partnership with Riedel, with me, Joe Fattorini, you,
Maya Samuelsson.
and here's a big cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.